Hi there. Welcome to Cretan Classics. Today I have two guests back on that haven't been on the show for a while, but we are here. Obviously, you're reading the thumbnail. You know, we are here to review the brand new, well, almost brand new CD by IQ called Dominion. And I want to welcome back to the channel Bicycle Legs from Bicycle Legs Talks Music. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And also from his brand new channel, Todd Evans from Recurrent with Todd Evans. Welcome and congrats on the new channel.
Thank you. Thank you. It's always good to be here on this show. Absolutely.
Thanks for coming back, guys. So today we are going to review. It came out a few months ago, but due to various circumstances and schedules, we're getting to it now. IQ's Dominion. I have the CD, and my compatriots have the CD. It's only 5 tracks, as Todd just showed you, and they have the vinyl and the CD. I only have the CD. They have CD and vinyl because they're cooler than I am. That's what it is. And while I rattle off some of the stats for the album, some chart action, production, yada yada, the gentlemen are going to show their vinyl. So IQ's new studio album Dominion was released March 28th of 2025. It's on their own Giant Electric P label, once again, GEP, produced by guitar player Michael Holmes, recorded November 2023 to December 2024. This was recorded at Orbit Studios, Southampton in the
Yeah.
UK. Engineered, beautiful vinyl, guys. Engineered by Rob Audrey. All songs here were written by guitar player Michael Holmes. He did all the music, and Peter Nichols, the singer, wrote all the lyrics. It's 5 tracks. The art direction and design is by Tony Lithgow. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. You got 5 songs. It was released, obviously, on vinyl, CD, and digital. Peter Nichols on lead and backing vocals. Michael Holmes, guitars, keyboards, and backing vocals. Neil Durant on keyboards. Tim, and I know I'm going to mispronounce it. Is it Esau or Esau? Esau?
Esau, I think.
Esau?
Yeah, I think so.
Tim Esau
My
on
best
bass
guess.
guitar, bass pedals, and backing vocals. And Paul Cookie Cook on drums and percussion. Not the same guy from the Sex Pistols. Now, there was some chart action overseas on the Dutch charts in the Netherlands. Right after release date, April 10th of this year, it hit number 84. On the Scottish charts on April 10th, it hit number 52. And all the rest of these charts are from the UK. They're all April 10th, except I will start from May 22nd with the progressive album charts in the UK. It hit number 10. Album sales, and these are all April dates now, number 32. Download charts, number 13. Physical albums, number 38. Nice, because we all have physical copies of it. The rock and metal albums, the official chart, number 4. So it did really well there. That's its highest chart placement. And the independent album charts, number 18. So that's all the chart action. Of course, unfortunately, it didn't chart here, but IQ are a cult band in America. So we're going to go around robin and talk individually about each song. So, Bicycle Legs, what do you think of the first song? And this album starts with the epic, The Unknown Door. It's broken into 4 parts. Part 1, Faint Equations. Part 2, Many and More Still. Part 3, An Orbital Plane, Plane. And Part 4, Dream Stronger. So, what are your thoughts on the epic song?
Okay, well, firstly, want to get into a really nerdy stat here. This is the first IQ album since Tales from the Lush Attic to open with the longest track on the album. And I checked with every studio album. The only other one that starts with the longest track is Tales from the Lush Attic. So that's a real throwback. But I love this track. Um, it starts off with this fanfare, almost like sort of fanfare for the common man kind of thing. Um, it's got some really lush keys. Peter's vocals against just the keys and the voices from the beginning of World War II. There's these, sort of like, I think it's Neville Chamberlain talking about, the invasion of Poland and that sort of thing. You've got some really orchestral synths. Um, this section, you know, the first section, Fade Equations, it functions very much as kind of an intro to the song proper. Um, you get some more pulsing keys towards the end, and then some cymbal splashes and toms, and finally a little bit of Spanish guitar, which I don't think you get a lot of, you know, that nylon string guitar on IQ pieces. Like normally, if Mike plays acoustic guitar, which he doesn't do very often, it's usually a steel string guitar, and we'll get some of that, you know, later on, some steel string acoustic. But we get into the main sort of meat of the song with the second section, Many and More Still. You know, this is really IQ sounding, you know, for want of a better word. Um, you know, this reminds me of, you know, slightly older IQ. I don't mean like going back to the 80s IQ, but I mean things like Subterranea or Dark Matter. You know, it's got that kind of feel to it. Um, it's got that Mike Holmes guitar tone, his sort of signature guitar tone that I love so much. Um, some of the synth sounds though are a bit more modern, and you know they're not all analog sounding synths. Some of them are very more sort of modern digital sounding synths, which I think is good to have as a mix. You get this really good synth solo in the middle. It's a bit shorter though. You get these rumbling bass pedals in this section. You get the trumpet synths in the back in the second half, which gets more intense. Um, the ensemble playing on the second half of Many and More Still is absolutely breathtaking. Um, and there's a beautiful guitar solo towards the end, and it builds to a climax. And then you get into the orbital plane, and we start off what I said in my notes. We start off in Eerie Land. You know, it's really eerie. You know, the voices and the fanfares are back, but the voices are kind of distorted. You can't make out what they're saying. You've got this strummed acoustic guitar, but with steel guitar this time. You know, steel string acoustic, and you've got this eerie synth, and it all sounds a bit post-apocalyptic. You know, which I think is really really cool. And the drums come in and start really propelling this third section. Um, Cookie's playing is great on this whole song. You know, he does some really great fills and stuff. And I love the pipe organ on this one. I know it's synthesizer pipe organ, but still, I love that pipe organ sound. It's absolutely great. You get another tasty guitar solo and another really cool little synth solo. Um, from the slow, eerie start, this third section in orbital plane, it really builds into something breathtaking. And then we get back into Eerie Land with the beginning of Dream Stranger. Um, you know, and much like Faint Equations feels like an intro, Dream Stranger feels like an outro. It feels like sort of the, you know, the final chapter of a book, as it were. Um, you get similar vocal melodies to Faint Equations, and I always love that sort of book ending feature that they do in some of these epics. Um, and it just brings everything to a suitable climax. Even though this is the first song on the album, you know, it is the epic. I really feel like this is the centerpiece of the album. It's certainly, I think, the most ambitious piece on the album. And there's this lovely little coda on Spanish guitar and synth to end the piece. And they do that a couple of times on this album with these lovely little quiet codas to the ends of songs. So, yeah, I mean, The Unknown Door, it's a triumph. It's one of their great epics as far as I'm concerned.
Nice. Todd, thoughts?
Yeah, it's funny. I have not, even though I was aware that this song was split into four parts, I have not been splitting it into four parts in my head. So that probably would have helped me learn it faster. But like the beginning of it with the brass ensemble was really unique. I mean, it's obviously synthetic, but to me that makes it better. because it makes it more unique. There are EDM elements in this song, and they kind of go throughout the album. Electronic dance music, EDM. Michael Holmes likes EDM. I heard him talking about that in an interview, and so that's probably his doing. But I think that that's really cool. They've been doing that as far back as uh, Subterranea, but there's a couple of passages in Subterranea that sort of borrow from that. But I really like that there's so much of it here. The acoustic guitar picking, the nylon string that we were talking that Daniel was talking about earlier, is that's kind of what ends the first half of Resistance at the end of For Another Lifetime. And so that's a very similar sound to that. And I was really happy to see that return. There's a part in the middle of this before you get to that chaotic, crazy, scary middle section there are some like mathematical riffs. I'm not going to sing them because I'll butcher them, but there's just some very proggy, syncopated math rock kind of ensemble playing that I really really love. And there's that the chaotic part that is kind of a swirling, roaring kind of chaos. There's all of these sound effects that are happening, and it's kind of like not quite as scary, but it's kind of like Without Walls on The Road of Bones has a similar thing going, and it's kind of like parts of it reminds me of parts of Stephen Wilson's The Raven, like the watchmaker, and there's the kind of thing where you're like, what is going on there? It just sounds kind of scary and spooky.
Intense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then after that, you get that rhythmic acoustic guitar part that's like dun, 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 dun. It almost makes me sound. It almost sounds like Dogs from Pink Floyd is about to start. You almost feel like he's going to start going. You gotta be crazy. But I absolutely love that. I may be the only person that hears that, but it just to me, I'm just like, oh, that almost sounds like Pink Floyd. One of the IQ things that they do that I absolutely love is that echo vocal thing when he says from so far away and it away echoes. I absolutely adore that. I think that that's so great. One of those IQ isms that you hope they'll use. I'll talk about another one that comes up in No Dominion, but Michael Holmes, when he was talking about this song in interviews, he said that he kept feeling like it wasn't finished and you kept going back to it and adding stuff to it. And when you hear somebody say that, you think, oh, well, that's going to be end up being kind of a chaotic arrangement, but that's not what it is. You can almost feel why he thought that he kept wanting to do that. Kept thinking, oh, I got an idea. I'm going to put something else in. I'm going to put something else in. But the results don't seem like they are disorganized. Whatever he was doing when he kept adding to it, he was obviously keeping everything in good order. There are vocal lines in the song that really go somewhere. That's one of the things I love about IQ. They don't, everything is leading somewhere. And when I say that, I don't mean lyrically. I mean like musically. Like it feels like everything is deliberate and it's taking you somewhere, and there's a destination. So many keyboard sounds in this track. So many. The organ, the pipe organ, there's synth solo, just a lot of things from the bag of tricks. And like we were talking about in the IQ ranking video, uh, Neil Durant, Michael Holmes, we may never know who's doing what because Michael is also credited with keyboards. So many guitar solos, and that really goes for the whole album. I think I counted four in this song. It's either three or four. And a lot of times in IQ, they tend to save up the guitar solos in an album and put them in specific places. Like maybe there out of five songs, there might only be two or three that have a guitar solo. This song itself has three or four. The arrangements are so grand, and it seems like it's more about the ensemble than it is setting up solos. And you get that a lot with prog rock, and that's not a complaint. That doesn't bother me at all when bands do that. But I feel like this is more about the ensemble than it is about setting up solos. So many great peaks in this song. I can't say enough good things about it. It's not the one that I discovered and got into first because I knew when I first heard it, it was going to take more work than some of the other tracks. But certainly be warning, I'm still getting something out of it each time I listen to it.
Okay, thanks. You guys said so much about it. I'll add a little bit. First of all, I need to apologize because when we did the album ranking about 6 months ago or so, I wasn't that much into the last two albums. They're both double albums. They both have a lot of songs. They're both very thematic, almost concept albums, if you will, or one is. And they're very dense. And it took me a long time to get into them. And I was stubborn. I was one of those, oh, no John Anderson, no Yes type people. I was like, no Martin Orford, no IQ. Even though I love Frequency, which Martin Orford is not on. But Neil Durant is a great keyboard player. And he has great sounds on this album and especially on this epic song. Once it starts off, it sounds like Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I thought ELP, maybe even EL Powell, the way, what is it, the score, I think,
Yeah,
is the first song, leads off
yeah,
that album with
that's what I thought of.
triumphant sounding brass keyboards, like you said. It's a great opening. And right away, oh, ELP, this is Prague. And it's just a huge, long journey and so many twists and turns and ins and outs. It's an amazing song, and I really can't add much to what you guys said, but I do apologize if I was talking, not talking trash, but just not saying Neil Durant is a great keyboard player because he is. And like you said, Todd, coupled with Mike Holmes, the keyboards on this record are just stellar. Bicycle Legs, you said it's old school with the analog synths, some newer sounds too. So it mixes it up and it's to great effect. And the solos here, and everyone shines because I think throughout the album, I'll mention it when I talk about the other songs, the shorter
Yeah.
tracks, just Cookie's drumming and Tim's bass playing throughout the album, they're all great. And of course, Peter Nichols has such a unique voice, just very different from everyone else in Prague, I always thought. So it's an epic track. Let's move on to track number two. This is the shortest song on the album, a little over 3 minutes, called One of Us. And this is sort of like an acoustic ditty, but Bicycle Legs, I'll let you speak about it. One of Us, track two.
Wanted to add one little thing about Peter Nichols. I don't know if you guys will agree with me, but I feel like he's one of those rare singers who just gets better with age. You know, I think he just becomes a better and better singer with each album.
Yeah. I
Um,
think this is his best performance. By the way, I'll go so far as
hmm,
to say that.
Super high
yeah.
praise.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, I mean, this song though, One of Us, might just be Mike and Peter because I mean, you listen to it, you've got Peter singing obviously, and you've got some guitar and you've got some synth pads. You
Right.
don't have any fancy synth playing. You don't have any fancy keyboard playing. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if the keyboards on this are mic as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's just the two of them. There's no bass, there's no percussion, you know, you get this short and gentle piece, which basically I love it on its own merits, but I also take it as just a 2 to 3 minute breather after what we've had
You need
with the
it.
unknown door.
Yep.
We've had nearly 20 minutes with this massive epic piece. And it's like, okay, let's take it down a notch, just catch our breath, and then go into the rest of the album. But it's still a really lovely, delicate little piece. And Hida has this breathiness to his vocal on this song that I really, really like. So I think it's a perfect sequencing to have this song come right after the unknown door. So yeah.
Todd, your thoughts, opinion?
Yeah, it's funny. When I thought of this when I first heard the album, I thought, well, that's an unusual place to put an acoustic breather track because you're so used in the number two position because you're so used to that coming later or coming on side two or the end of side one is kind of a very typical place to put something like that. And honestly, that's where it is on the vinyl. But that and in that re for that reason it makes sense. But it's also it's not like it's like you could consider The Unknown Door half the album. So even though one of us is in the number two position, it's really in the middle. So it actually is that, and that might be why it feels so right where it is. And I can't think of another instance of this kind of a track on an IQ album. There may be one or two, but I couldn't think of another one. I didn't actually go through the entire discography and look at all the songs, but as far as just an acoustic track that might be just, one or two people.
What about on Tales from the Lush Attic, the piano piece from Mark
Th-
Crawford? Is that second or third in the track listing? My
Yeah, I want to say
love
it's
theme.
third.
Okay, it's third, not
But
second.
yeah, that would be an example.
Anything else to add about it?
No, that's all I really had for one of us.
Okay.
There's so much to say about all the other things. I figured I'd give everyone a break.
Okay, I got a couple of lines to say about it. I wrote down that after the epic and titanic title track, this is an excellent and exquisite come down. I put come down in quotes because almost the name of an IQ song,
Yeah.
a type of tune in the spot. It's buoyant and bouncy with Holmes on acoustic guitar. And I put Durant on supporting synths, but like you said, it could be Michael Holmes there. And Nichols giving a very spirited and playful lead vocal delivery. I use the word playful here because it's a little ditty and it somehow reminds me of like my childhood summer days from a long time ago. It has sort of like a throwback, yearning, longing type of tune, but it's upbeat and playful at the same time. So I like it, and I think it's in a great position. And like you guys said, the sequencing on this album is excellent. So it's a short piece, it's a breather after the 22 and a half minute epic long piece here. So now we're going to move on to track three. This was the first single from the album and the only one pre-released before the album was out by about a month. It came out in February. And this is almost the title track of Dominion. This is called No Dominion, 6.5 minutes long. Bicycle Legs, what are your thoughts on this song?
Well, the first thing I'll say is I actually avoided this track until I got the album because um, with a lot of bands that I really, really love, I want to experience the album as an album. So I generally don't sort of listen to the pre-release tracks because I want to hear them in the context of the album. But that's just the way I do things. I'm not suggesting that that's right or wrong or anything like that. I mean, this one starts as bombastically as the first two songs don't. The first two songs start quite quietly, and, obviously one of us remains quiet for the whole, 3 minute duration. Whereas this one starts, really sort of with that prog bombast and that sort of thing. But you also get some Celeste in there as well as the analog keyboards, that sort of bell kind of sound. Um, again, this wouldn't sound out of place on some of those late 90s, early 2000s IQ albums. And I love those albums, so I'm really happy about that. Um, you know, um, the verses are mid-tempo and keyboard heavy. There's synths and there's piano. One thing I did notice, we're more than halfway through the album by this stage. I mean, as far as length goes, everything's been in 4/4 so far, which is unusual for IQ because IQ do like to use their tricky time signatures. So it's interesting that we get a 22-minute epic, a 3 minute song, a 6.5 minute song, and we've never strayed out of 4/4 the whole time. So I just thought that was an interesting little nerdy thing. That because I'm always looking at time signature. One of the things I love about prog is all those weird time signatures and stuff. So, um, but these are still really good songs. I'm not having a go at them because they're in 4/4. Um, the second part, um, gets more dramatic after those sort of first two verses, and then it quietened down again before a climactic guitar solo, and then it fades. The thing about the songs that make up side two of the vinyl, so tracks three, four, and five, is that they're separate songs, but they all kind of segue into each other. So, which again reminds me of Dark Matter in particular. You know, a lot of the songs on Dark Matter segue into each other with kind of sound effects or that sort of thing. So, yeah, no Dominion's a really, really good song, but I think everything on this album is a really, really good song. Spoiler alert. So, yeah, no, I really love it.
Todd?
Well, you mentioned the time signatures, and it's funny, that's usually me, but I didn't even notice that. I've been so busy, and we'll talk about this more when we get to the end, but I've been so busy being so profoundly touched by the beauty of this album that I haven't even gotten around to analyzing it for time signatures, which is usually one of the things I do first. But so I think it's a really great observation. I think No Dominion is probably the perfect track to use to introduce to IQ to somebody who's not familiar. I think it has everything in it. Um, I think is that uh, actually, it's funny, kind of funny. I think of it as the chorus, the string melody that it pretty much starts with. I almost feel like that's kind of like the main part of it. It's almost like the chorus. And is that the best synth sound ever? Maybe, in my opinion. It may be the best string synth sound ever. That's one of the things that you can count on with this band is I think it's probably a collaboration. I know Mike has said it's not me, it's Neil. Neil's really that good, but I think it's both of them. But a couple of things I wanted to talk about. The slide up to the guitar solo, so fantastic. I mean, Michael is so good at doing little rock and rollisms like that that are so tasteful and in exactly the right spot that I just absolutely love that. Is it Mike's best solo? It's one of them, I think. Um, uh, And then the thing that I look forward to the most, Cookie's triplets on the drums, that he puts in. There's one of them. There's one of those in every IQ album, and in on Resistance, it's in For Another Lifetime, and that's kind of where he usually puts it in the big finish of the most epic song. But here it's in the middle of No Dominion, and I absolutely love it. I always look for it, and I'm glad it's there. And it was in an unexpected place for me. So that's I wasn't expecting it there. Great ending to the song. People complain about fade outs, and I always say some songs are made for fade outs, and this is one of them. Fading out is a perfect ending to this song. And it's great that it has that weird computer noise. It's kind of like distorted, like something's gone wrong with your computer. And it kind of reminds me of in the end on The Road of Bones, where there's that modem sound in the silence between the two parts of the song. I love it. It's kind of like the bell, bicycle aids call it a Celeste, and that's what it most sounds like, but then it kind of distorts and like something's warped and goes wrong with it. And I love that. I think it's super creative. So yeah, I was pretty blown away by No Dominion. I did listen to it three or four times, but Bicycle Legs is absolutely right. I still separate Mama from the rest of the Genesis Shapes album because I bought the 12-inch and played it a million times before the album came out. And I will never do that again, but I did cheat and listen to it three or four times.
I did the same thing. I think I played it two, maybe three times, and that was it. And I do usually play singles in advance, but before I go to shows, I do not look at setlistfm.com, whatever that site is, because I like to be surprised going to live shows. But I did play this single a few times, and I wrote down, you called it a Celeste bicycle legs. I love Neil's swirling synths and chiming keys that open the song, and Cookie's bashing away at his kit. And Neil's lead synth line is stellar at the 46-second mark. I love that part. And then the music calms down at the 1 minute mark, and Peter comes in with the vocals over a calm bed of keys. And Tim has some nice bass accompaniment during the opening verse and throughout the whole song. And like I said, this was the only pre-release song from the album. And to me, it's a mini melodic masterpiece. Say that three times fast. I could barely get it out once. Its lushness and melodic hooks draw the listener in. And Holmes waits until the last minute, plus a little over a minute, to come in with a sterling outro guitar solo. And in my last line of my notes on this song, it leaves you wanting more as the song slowly fades. So I wanted a little more, but you, Todd, said it's perfect the way it fades out. So we agree to disagree on that.
I love songs that fade out and leave you going, no, I'm
I
not
want
done
a
listening to
little,
that.
it's
That's
6.5 minutes. They could
genius,
have
I
made it
think.
longer.
I like to be messed with like that.
So now we are moving on to track four, the next to last track on the album. It is called Far From Here. 12 minutes, almost 45 seconds long. Bicycle Legs, what do you think of this song?
Yeah, I mean, this is, if The Unknown Door is the epic on the album, then Far From Here is the mini epic on the album. And it starts off again with that sort of Celeste or bell sound. And it gives it, but in this context, it gives it this sort of creepy kind of music box kind of feeling at the beginning of the song. I've got to say, this is a very atmospheric IQ album, even by IQ standards. You know, um, this one's in 6/8, so we've got a slightly different feel here. I always love that sort of rolling feel you get with a 6/8 feel. Um, and then it gets more up tempo, but very ominous sounding after that intro. Um, you know, it's got, you got the choir mellotron going in this one, which is a sound that I always love because again, it gives that sort of spookiness and that sort of thing, which I think is great. But then we finally do get a little bit of trickiness in the time signatures here because we get uh in this sort of middle section, we get the 6/8 interspersed with this sort of odd bar of 5/8. So it'll go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, um, so that sort of tickled me when I finally heard a bit of an odd time signature going on there. Um, then we get into this martial sounding sort of section in 4/4, which has got this really, really great synth playing. I think Neil is, you know, cooking with gas at this part of the song. Um, and we get, you know, the last couple of albums, if there's one thing that I found an adjustment, I won't say I didn't like it, I'll say it was an adjustment for me, was that there were certain sections on the last couple of albums where Mike's guitars almost got a bit metally. They got really heavy with some riffing and that sort of thing. And we get a little bit of that in this song, but it's really the only place in the album where we do get that. Um, it's we've got some quite modern synth sounds going on that build into this sort of heavy ensemble section with Peter singing absolutely brilliantly over the top. Um, then they seamlessly return from the 4/4 field back into the 6/8 of the first sort of part of the song. And it's brilliantly done because it's seamless. You don't notice it unless you're really looking for it. Then we get this section of Peter's voice and synth pads, again, this sort of quiet coda at the end of the song. Um, you get this sort of chiming guitar and piano joining in. It's just a perfect way to end, sort of 12, 13-minute song. So again, another triumph. I think it's a great song.
Todd?
Um, One of the things that I wanted to mention about this, there are a couple of spots where I was gonna talk about lyrics, and I wasn't going to do it when we get to the next song, Neverland, because I wasn't sure I was going to be able to get through it. But because I think it's so gorgeous. But I do want to talk about some of the lyrics on Far From Here. There's a line that goes, "Right or the left brain, who'll decide? What if the right had nothing left? Would the left get nothing right?" that just the first time I heard it, I just went, wow, that's pretty fantastic wordplay. He's talking about right brain and left brain, creative versus logical, but is he talking about politics? Probably not.
I
Maybe.
I had that in my
It's
notes.
just so good. It's so good. Um, I just can't get over how good that line is, that phrase. I love the bass pedals in this track. They're really noticeable here. They're kind of all over the last three or four IQ albums, and I love that because it's a sound that a lot of people think of as a dated sound, but they've just kind of made it their own and owned it. And I just that nobody's bass pedals sound like theirs. They're almost kind of trebly in a way, and as much as bass pedals can be. And I just absolutely love that. There's tuned percussion in here, bells, however you want to call it. Any song with tuned percussion is goes straight to my heart. I absolutely love it. I love that there's that flanger on the drums when they come in, when Cookie's drums come in, they're kind of going, there's that flanger sound on them, which I always think is great. I'm a sucker for flanger. Um, Fantastic synth solo in this song. More EDM in this track. And I just have in my notes, it's funny, it just says Mellotron with an exclamation point. Uh, and then the end of this song, it's got a beautiful climax and a beautiful ending. And it's funny. This was the last song that I really discovered because I felt like it was so much work to try to figure out the unknown door. And then when I got to this one, I was like, this is a lot to take in. And when I first heard the album, Neverland, the last track was the one that really hit me first. But this one I kind of discovered later. And I almost kind of feel like there's so many peaks in this album that I almost feel like this one we almost don't deserve. It's more than, I'm happy when you think about the end of Far From Here, I'm happy if an album only has one of those moments. And this album seems to have at least three. Um, so that's one of the things I love about it. The piano during the quiet part at the end, I wrote down front parlor piano because it's down in the mix and it almost doesn't sound like a recording studio piano. It almost sounds like a piano like somebody's playing the piano in someone's home. It's very understated. And Far From Here is great. Far From Here is definitely the most slow burn track and the one that I can just speak for me. I discovered it last and it's been moving up in the rankings, if you can rank five songs, pretty
Another
steadily. So I,
show.
I think it's pretty fantastic.
I agree. This might be my favorite song on the record. I wrote down it opens with a lovely, haunting music box, just like Bicycle Legs said, type twinkling melody line. Nichols' vocals then enter, beckoning the listener, sorry, to come along for a musical journey. Perhaps a subtle political song, just like you said, Todd, judging by Peter's lyrics here and there, but specifically the right and left part line. That's what hit me. At the 2.5 minute mark, the song picks up speed, and Cookie and Tim usher forth with the urgency, and Neil's lead keys add to the frenzy and the menace. Cookie has some dynamic drum work here, making me air drum along. Halfway through, and the song is really cooking and intense now until the 7:20 mark. After some quirky keyboards, the song kicks back in at the 8 minute mark, changing pages. Holmes has some nice supporting chugging guitar playing, and I simply adore Durant's lead synth here. Holmes then unleashes a Heroes theme guitar solo at the 9:35 mark of the song that simply soars to me. And when you think the song ends at the 10.5 minute mark, it does not. That's the musical climax. You would think the song ends, but there's still a 2 minute synth laden outro section with a lovely vocal denouement, hope I'm pronouncing that right, from Peter Nichols. And the last minute has some great piano plinking from Durant, too, I put down. So I think this is a great song. It's just a mini epic. It's another phenomenal song on the record. And now we move on to the last song, track five. And unlike the Marillion song, which I think is one word if memory serves, this is Neverland, but it's never space land. And that's the way he says it in the lyrics, as if it's about landing from an airplane, perhaps. But I'll
Hmm.
let Bicycle Legs take over. What do you think of the final track?
I'm just going to quickly add one thing to the beginning of Far From Here, that music box sound. I just think it's interesting that you find it beautiful. I find it spooky because that's just the way with music boxes, you know.
Yeah, I find
I
it
find
both.
music boxes creepy. So anyway, Neverland. Musically, it starts off where Far From Here leaves off. You know, it starts off with the synth pads and these sort of burbling synths. Um, you get this sort of synth bass, which I assume is the bass pedals, sort of building this intro into something with some really tasty bass guitar. I think this is the place more than anywhere else on the album where Tim Esau and his bass guitar is really at the forefront of any of these pieces. Um, and you get some great piano arpeggios as well. There's still no guitar or percussion at this stage, but there's a sense of momentum building, you know. It's one of those songs that starts off and it feels like it's building up and building up and building up and building up like this. You start to get some hi-hat and finally the piece explodes with drums and organ and mellotron, and it's just absolutely fabulous. And then you get some guitar chords adding to the melodrama. There's the drums shift to double time and back again. So I love that, when they're changing the tempo, doubling up the tempo, bringing it back to half time. Um, there's a wonderful guitar solo from Mike. It's a climactic end to the album with, again, one of those quiet, eerie codas. So I think it's the perfect way to end the album. Again, the whole album perfectly sequenced. I don't think you could arrange these five songs in any other way.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
Todd?
Well, you know, I tend to get really excited about very emotional, melancholic music. It's my favorite kind. And when I hear there's going to be a new IQ album or whatever, and I look at the track listing and I pick out a song, and I picked out Neverland, and I kind of have this attitude about it, like, come on, IQ, hurt me. And they really do. They really get to me in this song. I don't think I've ever been emotional about a bass solo, but that fretless bass solo, that's just exquisite. And it almost seems kind of them to give Tim that moment. Uh, it's just it just really makes me happy to hear it. It's got this building and building melody, and I'm talking about after the bass solo now, but the song just keeps going and going and going, and when you don't think it's going to get any prettier, it just continues to go further and further, and that is something that I always want a song like this to do, and I so rarely get that. Where I feel like, they could have made this song shorter, but they didn't. That whole last section leading up to the guitar solo goes for a really long time. And when you think that's the last time they're going to do it, they go through it again. And I had mentioned that I thought that this maybe was Peter's finest vocal performance on this album. When he hits those high notes, when he says, "Or it will steal my heart," I think that that's his moment where I, that's my favorite thing that he's ever sung. Um, I wasn't going to read any lyrics because I was afraid I wouldn't get through them, but I am going to read a couple. In this song, there's a part where he says, "Remember then how high we flew and how we never knew to come down. But I see you now in a blaze of light, sunset of stars so bright, a life gone before my eyes. Your secret histories and lost abilities stay always mine. Continue to shine upon me, somewhere still out there." I'm assuming this song is about the loss of somebody's partner. I thought that that's what The Road to Bones was about, and it turns out that it's about a serial killer. So sometimes I get these things wrong, but I'm just really blown away by this song. I think it's gorgeous, and I think it's when you get to that guitar solo, it's like really another guy. I feel spoiled. I mean, after so many great solos on this out, really another one. Thank you, but holy cow. And the sound effect at the end is kind of like the end of No Dominion, where it kind of gets all garbled and weird, and but in a prettier way. Just a great way to end the album.
And my notes on it say, pardon me, darn it. Excuse me. Song's a little over 8 minutes. Neverland, the final song on the album out of five. Durant and Nichols start this song slowly, and then Tim comes in with some beautiful fretless bass at the 149 mark, and he has a bit of a slight solo, like you said, Todd. And then he sort of he's still there on the fretless bass, but it's more as if he's in the background and almost playing rhythm fretless bass, but he's still
Yeah,
there.
it's
And then
it's so great.
the song, like you guys both said, the song builds and kicks in at just about the 4 minute mark. And it's a slow build, but it's not in a bad way. Like at first, I was taken aback by the first song because it's what's like 4:39, 4:34 until it just finally kicks in. The first song, The Unknown Door. This song has that slow build too, but it's different because, like you guys said, it's going somewhere. So it's a very slow build, but not in a bad way. And I wrote down, I mean that you're waiting for the song to take off and you know it's going to after the long build up. And then I love that lead synth line at 5 minutes and 2 seconds. And it lasts for over 2 minutes until the 7:09 mark. And Holmes has another fleet fingered lead guitar solo that starts at 6:36 and it ends where the synth solo ends at 7:09. And then once again, I wrote, you get that icy 1 minute spacey synth cool down. And I wrote down an excellent way to end a sterling album. So there are no bad tracks on this album. And to me, it's a lot, even though it's dense and it's lush and it's prog and it's IQ. I mean, I didn't realize that the changing time signatures don't kick in till the fourth song. That didn't even hit me. That's a great catch, Bicycle Legs. Great
Yeah.
work on that because that went right over my head. I'm the big dummy. Grady, you big dummy. At any rate, so getting back to the album. So I think this is a much more immediate album, even though it's still dense. It strikes me as it's much, if like you said, if you were going to turn someone on to IQ, you'd play them the song No Dominion. And to me, this is a great prog album to get someone into the band with. And I like it better. It's more immediate than the last two releases, which were both double albums, concept albums, thematic albums. So I really enjoy this record. And I just thought of a good question, guys, before we sort of end the episode. Bicycle Legs, where do you think this would sit on your album ranking, or is it too soon to say?
I kind of suspected you were going to ask that question. I don't know exactly where I would put it, but I think, and yeah, I think I'm pretty safe in saying this. I think it would be top five.
Wow. Todd, what about you?
I'm going to go further and I'm going to put on my fanboy crown and I'm going to say that this album gave me exactly what I wanted from it. From a purely selfish standpoint, you don't always get what you want. You might go through, I think, a dream theater. I think, I want them to use their gift of pop sensibility and give me a big fat emotional ballad on every album, and I don't always get that. For this album, they gave me exactly what I wanted. Every piece of it is exact, and then some surprises, like One of Us. Uh, this is without a doubt my favorite. This is without a doubt my favorite, and it
Wow.
may be the most beautiful album I've ever heard. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it an 11 plus.
Wow, just like Spinal Tap. This one
Yeah.
goes up to
It
11. I
it
never
means a
thought,
lot to me. And the fact that we had a couple of times when we had to postpone this video just made me love it even more.
Okay.
So yeah,
Because you love the Road of Bones so
I
much.
do. Road of Bones is number two.
I can't believe this is, I'm really surprised. Are you as surprised as I am, Daniel, by what he said?
Yes and no. I mean, I know that Todd really likes the
You
more
know,
recent IQ the best.
yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely right up there for me too. I don't know if it quite, my favorite, as you know from the show, was Dark Matter.
Dark
I don't
Matter
know
is
if it
so good.
quite, I don't know if it quite gets up to that, but it's very close. I would back up what Todd says. This really does give you everything you want from an IQ record. If you're an IQ fan, you know, this album is just hog heaven for an IQ fan.
Th- It's remarkable that they're making albums this good at this point in their career.
Yeah, 40 plus years into their career.
Yeah, that's just remarkable. And and the cover art is so good. I was looking at it. I was gonna say it's the first time that I always really like their graphics, I was gonna say it's the first time there's a person on the album cover, but that's not true. There's a person on the Road of Bones. There's a person on Resistance. So, but I think I kind of appreciate that it's an older person because I think I can sort of identify with it a little better for that reason.
It is a good cover. I think I like
Yeah.
it better than the last few album covers,
Yeah.
actually.
I saw the cover and I was like, ooh, that's really good. I liked Resistance a lot, but the cover of it. But
I think I like this one better.
yeah, I think I do too. And there are so many opportunities in the inside art. We were looking at that earlier. It's so gorgeous and epic. And there have been a couple of variations that they did to promote this on social media where it's like panoramic. And it just lends itself so well to that kind of remixing of the elements of the artwork.
And I
Great.
like the use of blues on the inside. It's great.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Really pretty album and a great record. It wouldn't be in my top five, but it's outside, probably in the middle, maybe, of the pack right now. But the more I hear it, the more I enjoy it. And like you said, it opens itself up to you and it gives you more to listen to. And now I'm going to have to listen to it for the changing time signatures that the first three songs are
Yeah.
for. And then the fourth song is where the trickiness really comes in. Now I'm going to have to listen for that. So now there's another reason to go back to it.
Another thing too, this five song structure, I think of the last two albums as also having that because I separate the first disc and the second disc. But I mean, this kind of goes along. I believe this goes along with Dark Matter too. Is it five songs or four songs? I think it's five. This
Five.
is where it's at. 53 minutes, this many songs. My favorite kind of prog album.
It's perfect. And
Yeah.
allegedly, they recorded more stuff, and they'll probably, hopefully, release that sooner as like a follow-up album. And if it's anything like this one, we're probably all going to love it as well. And
Yeah.
hopefully, we won't have to wait 6 years.
But I'm
Like,
really glad they did that. I'm really glad they didn't put it out with this because that just makes it harder to
right, the
to
double album.
learn and harder to
Yeah.
feel the sequencing and yeah.
That was my issue with the last two records.
Yeah.
And it's a me thing. But this new record, I think, is really good. I love it. And we all obviously highly recommend it to all you prog people out there in YouTube land. And before we say goodbye, I just want to go around the horn. Bicycle Legs, what's coming up on Bicycle Legs Talks Music?
Okay, well, this Saturday I will be having another one of my episodes of the sequel to Success. I'm having Mike Lodano on. It's something we actually recorded back in May. Um, and we will be talking about Marillion's Clutching at Straws as the follow-up to Misplaced Childhood. So, and then after that, I'm hopefully this weekend recording a show with our good friend Peter Kerr from Rock Daydream Nation. And it's going to be a little bit of it. I won't give the whole topic away, but we're going to be talking about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But we're going to be talking about something a little bit different than people normally do when they do shows about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So check that out when it comes up in a couple of weeks' time.
Okay. And Todd, you've got a brand new channel with only about 4 videos out right now, three or
Yeah,
four.
I think yeah, four videos.
And it's
I
called,
just
let me just say the title. Recurrent. Recurrent is one word. Recurrent with Todd Evans.
Thank you.
Take it
Thank
away.
you. Yeah, I just recently reviewed the new Catatonia album, Nightmares as Extensions of the Waking State, which I think is not as good as the one before it, but really gets under your skin, and I'm kind of obsessed with it right now. I don't have a whole lot planned in advance. I have been kicking around an idea that I'm probably going to do next week, where I'm going to take all of uh, the Moody Blues albums from 1986. So starting with The Other Side of Life, going to the end of their career and making a playlist because a lot of people think the quality of their albums went down during those years, and I agree that it did, but I'm going to try to make a playlist of all the best songs so could come up with one modern Moody Blues record of your own that would seem better.
That's
So I'll
pretty.
explain more about that when I do the show,
Oh, that
but that's
sounds
something that I've
interesting.
been brewing in my mind for a while.
Because that's funny. In the last month or so, I've played everything I think from Long Distance Voyager, which was sort of my introduction to the band, on up through what, Strange Times?
Hmm.
I
Well,
think
in
I skipped.
December, if you count that.
Yeah, I didn't play the Christmas album, but I played all the other albums in the past few months because I love Long Distance Voyager. I think that's a great record.
Well, I'm not even going to include Long Distance
Right.
Voyager and the Present in my show because I think they're so good, and that may be a show idea for a separate show. But the what I've got in mind is that there are great tracks on some subpar albums. So and then I'm doing something with Peter on Peter's show that I won't spoil, but we're going to talk about, and I'm always super positive about what I talk about. We're going to talk about some artists that we don't really care for.
Ooh,
So
gonna be
that should be fun.
saucy. And anything else or?
That's all I've got right now.
And I have a couple of shows coming up on Cretan Classics. It's not officially out till July 18th. That's when it goes digital, but you can order the brand new Styx album. And I just got my copy. I should take it out of the jewel case so there's no glare. Circling from Above, the brand new Styx album. I'm going to be reviewing this shortly. And what just came out yesterday, we're filming this on Tuesday, the 10th. Hopefully, it'll be out this weekend. A brand new book from our friend up in Canada, not Martin
Yay.
Popoff, who has over 100 books, but Tim Derling has written the first book on Night Ranger called Sing Me Away, the Night Ranger album review. There's his name. Beautiful cover with the three mainstays of the band for the past 40 plus years on it. And I'm happy to announce, like you guys have been in books before by Martin and Tim, I am actually in this book, Sing Me Away, the Night Ranger
Yay.
album review. And I am in the first four chapters on the first four albums on MCA, the Music Cemetery of America, but I shouldn't say that. And I just got this today in the mail, so I really haven't even cracked it open. So I'm curious to dig into this. And I will be talking to Tim Derling. I will be interviewing him about this book and all his other great books. So look for those two shows coming up the next month or so on Cretan Classics. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming on. We will be back later on in the summer with a special show, but we're keeping that under wraps for now. And Todd doesn't even know what's going on, Bicycle Legs, and we're going to reveal it to him once we get off the air. So thanks
That's
everyone for.
exciting.
Oh, wait till you hear it. Your mind is going to be blown. I can't wait to see your reaction on camera once we turn off the Zoom from the public view. But I want to thank everyone for joining us for this IQ Dominion review. Remember to rock out, prog on, and pogo, and we will see you coming up soon on Cretan Classics. Thanks, gentlemen. Take
Thank
care.
you, Davey.